She moved into my home on a Tuesday. She said it would be 2 weeks. 8 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days later, I counted every single one she was still there. And by then, I had already found out everything. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I was a 34-year-old woman who thought she had the perfect life. A husband she loved. A home she was proud of. And a mother-in-law she thought she could manage. I was wrong about one of those things. This is the story of how I found out which one. When Margaret, that's what I'll call her, first knocked on our door with 3 suitcases, I smiled. I offered her tea. I gave her the nicest guest room. She had just had a small operation, she said. Just needed someone to look after her for a bit, she said. My husband David looked at me with those eyes. You know the ones. The ones that say, "Please, just this once." I said yes. Of course I said yes. I was a good daughter-in-law. That was my first mistake. By week 3, she had rearranged my kitchen. By week 5, she had told David that my cooking was too salty. By week 8, when the 2 weeks had already become 2 months, she started answering my phone. I told myself it was fine. She was elderly. She was recovering. I was being too sensitive. But then one evening, I came home early from work, and I heard her voice from the kitchen. She didn't know I was there, and what she said changed everything. She was on the phone, and I heard her say, and I will never forget these words, "Don't worry, she won't find out." She never does. I stood in that hallway for what felt like an hour. I didn't walk in. I didn't confront her. Instead, I walked back outside, sat in my car, and I made a decision. If she wanted to play a quiet game, then so could I. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered everything I needed. I spoke to a solicitor quietly. I made copies of documents she didn't know existed. I called her sister, the one she claimed she hadn't spoken to in years. Pause. And I had one very important conversation with my husband. I showed him everything, every message, every date, every lie, and then I sat back, and I waited for the right moment. It came on a Sunday. Margaret had invited her friends over, to my house without asking, for afternoon tea. I walked in, smiled at everyone, and set a folder down on the table. Inside that folder was a letter from our solicitor, a formal notice to vacate the property, and a printed copy of every message she had sent about me, to her friends. The same friends now sitting at my table. The silence was extraordinary. She left that same afternoon, with all 3 suitcases. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in my own kitchen, in the quiet, in my home, and it tasted absolutely perfect. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you, truly. If something like this has ever happened to you, I want to hear it. Leave your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories of patience, of strength, and of very satisfying karma, then subscribe. There are many more to come. Until next time.